Hi, everybody. Now, I'm hoping this works. Myself and Caroline are both hoping this works. So I'm going to double check before we go any further, just on my phone. As those of you who saw my afternoon little short LinkedIn Live on Monday afternoon, that was because I basically recorded 15 minutes of myself talking to myself with a black screen and no audio. Yes, I can see us.
Yay!
Yay, we live.
It's the little things in life, isn't it? It's like, right, point one, we've cooked, that's it. We're good to go now.
The tech works brilliant, and it gets recorded onto YouTube and LinkedIn. So if people can't see it at the moment, then you'll definitely be able to see it later on because it'll be on my profile. Hello, Caroline Carruthers.
Hello, what are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm slightly losing my voice a bit, so I've got my customary herbal tea with me.
That's not a good start to something where you're talking.
It's absolutely fine. Vocal zone, herbal tea. I'm kind of used to it. Thank you so.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I've literally like everything sphincter tight, fingers crossed, everything at the moment, quite frankly. Thank you so much for being my first guest on Rebel Women Lead, Caroline. This is exciting.
Thank you.
Now, thank you so much for being the substitute, the subbing in, the coming on, rallying halfway through.
Second best. I can
the pinch hitter. The absolute best. As we're not able to get Marion this time, we'll hopefully get Marion in the future into next year because we're aiming for these to be monthly LinkedIn Lives. So thank you so much for stepping up to the plate.
No problem. Genuinely happy to help. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good. So let's start with, I just want to find out a bit more about your journey to where you are now, because you're now running your own consulting firm.
I am.
You've written 3 books as well. And let's see if this banner.
Oh, thank you.
Nice. The banner works, yes. And it's on the comment on the LinkedIn Live event as well for your top book. And then also the other 2 books that you co-authored are also in my bookshop.org list of resources as well. So consulting, author, how did you get here? Share with our followers, our audience.
I would love to pretend, and I have said on a few occasions, I'd love to pretend that I had this grand plan and I sat down at 16 and went, this is where I'm going to end up. I'd be lying if I said that, Susan. It was quite frankly a set of fortunate events, to slightly misquote the book title. I have a very short attention span. I like solving problems, and I'm a little bit like a magpie when it comes to, ooh, that looks good. And then off I wander to do that kind of thing next. So that's kind of been the defining part of my career, if I'm honest, is that little kind of bopping from interesting thing to interesting thing to do.
And what was it about data? Because it's a very specific part of the tech sector. What is it about data that you were just like, oh, your magpie just went, oh, shiny?
Well, I think it kind of built up after a little bit of time, really, because I was in the tech sector. So I came up through the more traditional tech sector, and I ended up being a CIO and a CTO and kind of went through that route. But all the time that I was working with IT, I didn't really feel like I was fixing the root of the problem. So yes, we were doing some really good programs, we were doing some fantastic stuff in the tech space, but you could always see that we weren't fixing the thing that we really needed to fix. So that's why I got into the data space. That's what interested me, because if I'm going to solve a problem, I'd like it to stay fixed. And I think with data, that gives me that ability.
And when you first started working in data, how was the gender split? Because I was just looking at some stats, which still continue to be, excuse me, particularly depressing. In 2023, women constituted only 14% of tech leaders. Ooh. So how was it when you first started working, even just in IT? Was it yourself and a bunch of blokes?
It was myself and a bunch of blokes, and I think there was 2 other women on the floor, and a very big floor. I started working as a graduate with TSB, so North London, and it was I've got to share this story with you because this will make you laugh, but it'll tell everybody this is a toilet story. So this sets the tone for the whole interview, doesn't it?
Brilliant. As long as you don't libel yourself.
Promise I'm not libeling myself, because actually they were trying to do the right thing. They were desperately trying to be really, really good with me. But walked on this floor, and they didn't really have a lot of women on this floor. And up until the time that I got there, the women's toilets were on a different floor, and they decided that since they'd bumped up and had, enough women on the floor now, they'd refurbished the little toilets that were out of the way in the stairwell that nobody ever went to. So they had the main toilets by the main lifts that were the men's toilets, and then there's little dinky toilets in this little sort of out of the way area. So on my first day, you can imagine, I was terrified. My first day, it's my first proper job. You're sort of like desperately trying to look good, be good, know what you're doing. And I went into these little toilets because nobody had really used them before me. And they had just been refurbished. So there's all a story about them trying to do the right thing. But nobody else had tested the toilets until I got there. So I went to the bathroom fine. That wasn't a problem. Went to leave and pulled the handle off in my hand. So I'm now locked in the toilets in the out of the way stairwell area from the main office, and nobody came to help me because they were used to seeing me there. And I ended up having to, and I managed to get the window open about this much because it was 3 floors up, so it was kind of restricted how far you could open it. And I had to squeeze my head out and shout at somebody on the car park to come and let me out so I could get in. So I can't say that's the most illustrious start to a career you've ever had.
That is just brilliant, Caroline. And how old were you then?
I was 21.
And also, this is probably back in the days of, were you like suited and booted? Were you wearing a suit?
Oh, it was a dark blue suit. You either had a black suit or a dark blue suit on. Yeah. And quite frankly, Susan, I'm 6 foot tall and I don't have a normal female build. So I did on occasions get asked if I was wearing somebody else's jacket.
Wow. Okay, I think that's kind of setting a really high standard for what future speakers' first day at work is going to be like. I think that's brilliant.
You need to add that to the list of questions that you ask now.
I'm so going to. But that didn't put you off staying in tech?
No, it didn't put me off staying in tech. I am too much of a nerd and a geek. I love tech so much. I mean, since my parents were fantastic and really fed into my geekishness. And I think when I was 12, 13, they bought me a Commodore 64. Well, they bought me and my sister a Commodore 64 to share for Christmas. And oh my God, I was in seventh heaven. So I taught myself to code on the Commodore 64. So since then, that's it. I'm hooked.
See, I think that's brilliant. We had a VIC-20 that my brother used most of the time, and I didn't get a look in.
Ooh, I would have thought. Sadly. I would have thought.
He's bigger than me. He's still bigger than me.
Very sad.
So now that you're consulting, and did you, in terms of working within the sector and rising, as you said, to kind of like CIO roles, were you promoted? Did you kind of go up a ladder, or did you kind of see opportunities and kind of go sideways and diagonally?
I kind of had, I think I would say I had a career of 2 halves. So I did kind of go up a ladder at first. And I had, funny enough, I was talking at an event on Monday and I shared this story as well, but I think it's really pertinent to the question you've asked me. So I had one of these kind of like defining moments of my career where, because I'd grown up in the tech space with, quite frankly, a lot of men, none of them did anything wrong. I don't have those kind of like, they were horrible to me kind of stories in any way, shape or form. They were very respectful, very lovely. But I was made to believe that I had to be like them to progress in my career. And that was all in my head. Nobody else really did anything to me, but it was in my head that, so I had to imitate what I saw and be what I saw to progress in my career. So I spent an awful lot of time pretending to be something I'm not, if I'm honest. And I had a perfectly respectable career and I went really well. And I went from TSB, IBM, Atos Consulting. So fantastically, I mean, by any road, that was a decent career to have. And it wasn't until I'd been with Atlas Consulting, and I was very, I'm still ambitious. I'm still, goodness knows what for, but I'm still ambitious. I'm still kind of like pushing myself. So I wanted a partner, I wanted this, I wanted that. I was constantly pushing this through my whole career. And when I was at Atos, I was pregnant. So to my husband, everybody, just in case anybody's wondering, yeah, I was married at the time. And I'm still married to him, just being 20.
I wasn't going to wonder that at all.
I should probably remember how long I've been married for, but a while. Anyway, so I've got married, had my child, and I was worried. Again, nobody else said anything to me, but I was worried that I wouldn't still be able to do my role, that I still had to put the hours in, that I would still be this tough, nothing can touch me kind of person. And I came back from maternity leave, and I think it was about probably 4 to 6 months after I came back from maternity leave, and I was called into my boss's office, and I had this real point of clarity, because he turned around to me and he said, "Great, Caroline, we'll be really impressed. We've decided to put you on the partner track." And literally, this is what I've been working for 10 years. I was like, right, come on, go, go, go. And the instant he said it, I had this, I don't know, it's like a firework went off in my brain of I couldn't do that job and be the mum and the wife and the person that I wanted to be and knew that I should be in my soul. So I quit. And that was interesting, having to pop home and tell my husband while I was the breadwinner that I just quit the job, and we had a little child at home. But, and that was kind of the end of my first half. And after that, I focused on being myself, being, and just being me. And honestly, I went from a perfectly lovely career to bloody hell, what happened then? And it was just about unleashing who I was, I think, if I'm honest.
I don't think a lot of us kind of, I still see it happen today with younger women. And now it's part and parcel of kind of like in terms of the schooling in the UK as well, in terms of you have to do things a certain way, it's all to test, all of that kind of thing. And that then leads on into the future. But there's a certain, I don't think lots of us realize that being ourselves is an advantage. And I think part of that is because the majority of us have been brought up in terms of kind of communal thinking rather than individual, selfish thinking, putting other people first, caring about other people first, and a very kind of gendered aspect, kind of like we know that this kind of gets instilled kind of age 3 now. It's there already.
Yeah.
And when you start being yourself, it can be really nerve-wracking of just going, is anybody gonna like me? And to hear that your career just then went is just wonderful, and hopefully kind of really inspirational for people watching as well.
I hope so, because if nothing else, what I figured out was I've been using, it's not that I think you've got like a limited block for your brain power, but I've been using a portion of my brain power to think through the whole, what would such and such do in this scenario, or what should I do in this scenario, rather than just reacting and doing what I wanted to do. So it was almost like I unleashed an extra 20% of my brain power to do more stuff with when I stopped pretending.
And what aspects of you, I mean, this is kind of like self-reflection, so you might not feel ready to answer this, but what aspects of you do you think resonates with other people in the workplace?
I think one of the aspects is I'm very, jovial is probably not the right word, but I'm a little bit exuberant. I'm high energy. I want to share that with people. Now, I'm very cognizant that everybody doesn't quite share that. And there are some people that go, whoa, so I need to come down just a little bit to be a bit more inclusive. But actually, I think sharing that kind of energy with other people can make a really nice place to work. That's probably the main thing, whereas before it was a bit more, I'd say, black suit, dark blue suit in a box, whereas now, frankly, if you see me at work and I'm not in a pair of jeans, somebody should worry about what's going on with me, because this is me. It's a pair of jeans, I like my jumpers. I'm not going to worry about putting on an act. And I don't want anybody else to either.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, last year, because I coach, I have a coaching supervisor, as expected. And I'm quite happy to share this. We had a session where we were talking about what kind of corporates I wanted to work with. And we got into the conversation. We went quite deep and kind of got into the conversation in terms of kind of when I started in the workplace, if it was very, like you say, suited and booted. You know, I had jobs in finance where you had to wear heels 5 days a week. You won't see me in a pair of heels ever anymore. And
I'm not sure my would go in them anymore.
I don't think mine would either. I think I've probably got troll feet by now in my 50s. And my coaching supervisor, who's amazing, if anyone's looking for a coaching supervisor, Claire Norman, she's amazing. She said, "What do you want to do?" I was like, I just want to chuck the high heels, and I just want to chuck the high heels and that kind of suited and booted mentality out of my business and out of my way of thinking about who I coach and who I coach with as well. And it's been great since I've kind of let that go. So that actually, I mean, that's part of why I started Gen X Voices a couple of years ago. It's part of why I started Rebel Women Leaders. And this is me. You know, you either resonate with me and feel that I can kind of help you with coaching, or you're not the people that I should be speaking to. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly, because you cannot please everybody all the time, and nor should you want to. So my outward reflection is a little bit of my personality coming out. And if that doesn't resonate, then we probably shouldn't be working together in the first place. And then let's both go and work with other people that we should be.
And I like seeing with the younger generation now, in terms of they put values when they're looking for work so much higher in terms of kind of what they're looking for. They want to feel psychological safe within a company. They want to know their well-being's looked after, but they also want to know that their values are being reflected, or at least they can resonate with the values of the company. And that kind of mirroring effect is great to see with the younger generation, because we certainly didn't have that. We didn't have the opportunity when we were younger.
Well, nobody understood how important it was and the difference it could make to the work environment. And, you know, you can't blame people for not being aware of something. It's, you know, the kind of Rumsfeld, the unknown unknowns. But now we do know, then why wouldn't we make the working life better?
And we know, you know, between us, we know, I mean, that was a really shocking stat in terms of kind of leaders, and also women in tech, that leaders tend to still stay in the sector for like a max of 12 years and then completely leave and completely drop off. But we know that kind of that element of how you lead people is so important for being able to keep people, but also important in terms of finance. You know, a more diverse organization, especially at board level and manager level and middle manager level, means more innovation, means more money. So it makes sense to me and you.
Well, it makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of companies are you know, wising up to how the opportunities it can lead to at the moment. And for me, it's all about diversity of thought. I mean, we talked about men, women, but there's obviously other types of diversity out there as well. And I just think that your outward reflection is a reflection of your diversity of thought. So we've got different experiences to bring together. We've got different things to think through. And that just means that whenever we're looking at a problem, we're coming at it from different angles and hopefully finding the best way to solve it. And it doesn't mean that your thinking's better than my thinking, or my thinking's better than your thinking. It's just that in different circumstances, we all bring something to the party. And the richer we can make that problem solving, the better we can solve those problems.
And you feel that if your voice is being listened to, you feel that you have more, not kind of dedication to the people you're working for, but you're more likely to stick around for longer as well, because you feel that you're being listened to and cared about.
I think so. If you're being listened to, you're being cared about, you're being valued, and your input is being valued, then that's a nice place to work.
Yeah. Let's have more companies like that, please.
Oh, please. Can we just?
Can we stop the whole everybody get back to the office of 5 days a week as well? That would be quite nice as well.
I see the need. I really don't get me wrong. I do like being in the office with everybody, because it's nice to, you know, catch up on what's happening in the rest of their life and all the other stuff, and listening in on conversations, going, oh, you're working there, I didn't know that, can we share stuff? So, but it's about balance. We did 5 days a week. I've got to be quite frank, schlepping my ass into London 5 days a week, been there, done that, not doing it again.
It's the commute, isn't it? And lots of these larger companies that have been in the headlines over the last couple of weeks in terms of the return to work, I mean, that in itself is a daft phrase anyway, because it's not like people aren't working from home anyway, but the chief execs and the boards are having to justify the huge amounts of money that they've spent on renting offices or buying buildings. Let's be frank, that is what it comes down to in the end. But return to the office, it's like, well, it takes time and it's expensive. And there's not a lot of money going around at the moment. So we'd all rather be spending our money on things that we care about.
It's about balance. It's about how can we achieve this? And maybe, I don't know, 2 days a week in the office, and pick the days. Because there's nothing worse than wandering into the office and then sitting on a Teams call with somebody who's at home. I'm like, hang on, this is just does not compute to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? That thing of like, we expect you to be back in the office 5 days a week, and you go in and everybody is sitting on the same Teams call, but like in different offices.
You could have done that. I know. It honestly doesn't make sense to me either. So I'm much more about finding that balance.
So speaking of balance and change and where we are now, kind of mostly post-pandemic, but also cost of living crisis, the stats on women in tech are still really depressing and shocking. Let's not even think about the US at the moment or other geopolitical events. You know, kind of like no, don't. My big vision for my business and for me, and kind of like the purpose, is to eradicate gender inequality in the workplace. Because I see it as like everybody should have to kind of like have their thing, you know, whatever that thing is that you're passionate about. So what is your thing, or what radical change would you like to see in your sector, in tech, or even more specifically in data? And how can the rest of us help drive those changes?
So I guess my thing, if to put it in that kind of term, is around data. Funny enough, shocking her, but it's around people understanding what data can do for them, but obviously the downside as well as the upside, and to keep themselves safe. So I want people to be more data literate in their personal and professional lives. Now, obviously, my company teaches data literacy through organizations, and to me, that's a way, if we can spread data literacy through organizations, then people can spread that and take it home into their wider world. So for me, my thing is about people really understanding data and what it means to them.
So what does that, what I was going to say, so what would data literacy look like in somebody's personal life?
So in personal life, understanding that there's a value transaction when you use social media, for instance. And if you're happy with that value transaction, then fantastic. I'm not telling you not to do things. I'm asking you to know about what you're giving as well as receiving. So a simple thing that if you're on social media, please, please, please do not tell people when you're taking off for holiday. That's kind of a no-no. Put your pictures when you get back and show everybody what you've been and doing and all that kind of stuff. That's fantastic. But if you put your pictures up when you go away on holiday, you've just told people that your house is empty and you could be opening yourself up to be burgled, for instance. So that's, you know, one kind of natural aspect of things that I would want people to be cautious about. Be aware that who you're speaking to online may not actually be the person you think you're speaking to online, because you have to be really careful. I have a 21 last week, 21-year-old son, and we, you know, trying to educate him on, he's been using online, he plays games online, so he's talking to a lot of different people, trying to educate him about some of those people might not have his best interests at heart. So those are the kind of things in people's personal lives I'm really keen that we're just more aware of. Security for ourselves.
So how can other people help enable that? Help others become data literate?
So make sure that you're aware of what you can do yourself. So read up on what's happening with data, what's happening in this kind of space, what you should and shouldn't be aware of. I would want people to be very, very aware that we're all living in information bubbles. And what I mean by that is because of all the algorithms that we have surrounding us on social media is feeding us what it thinks we want to see. So if people would probably be really surprised if they saw who and what I follow and what I read online, because I read some very right-wing things, I read some very left-wing things, because what I'm trying to do is push my information bubble out as far as I can, so I can try and balance off what some of the algorithms are that's showing me, so I can get a lot of diverse thinking into my streams. That said, even I'm aware, very aware, that I live in a bubble and I'm still getting fed information. So you have to double check things. You have to be very cautious. You have to not jump to conclusions. So I would, one very tangible thing I would ask people to do is, if you're online, try and go and read something you wouldn't normally read, and read it with an open mind, and see if you can push your information bubble out just a little bit further.
Are you suggesting that I go and read Trump's blog? Because that's slightly terrifying thought to me, I will be honest.
Well, do you know what? If it's terrifying, I think you should do a terrifying thing every once in a while, just to push yourself out your boundaries.
I think it's that I don't want to, my issue with that is that I don't want to add to their audience numbers and therefore their income generation.
Now, to play devil's advocate, how could you argue about somebody that you're not actually listening to and aware of what they're actually saying?
Very true. Very true. It does come back. I mean, it's interesting that Trump just keeps coming around, though, doesn't he? Because I did my first bit of coaching training back in, it was 9 years ago now, 2015. And one of the questions that we were looking at together as a group was, would you coach Trump?
Wow.
So, yeah. And I had quite a my first response was very visceral, just like, no, it'd be like coaching Hitler for me, just no. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, could I put myself in that place where I would be open to coaching Trump? And I kind of got out of it by thinking, well, he's not coachable anyway. He wouldn't want to have a coach, because unlike you, Caroline, he doesn't want to see different opinions on things, sadly.
But how? So I know I'm playing devil's advocate a lot.
Yeah,
here,
go for it. I love it.
You're assuming that he doesn't want a coach. So, and you blocked yourself off to the possibility by assuming that he doesn't want to. So again, how could you change his mind if you aren't open to work with him in the first place?
I'm going to have to think about that. Who has been, I'm just aware of time as well. Who has been, so we'll go on to the next question, because we could end up sitting like having a debate about
we could.
Certain orange men for quite a long time, and kind of widening of thought. I think it's a really interesting area to get into. And this could turn, we could turn Rebel Women League
we could spend 45 minutes talking about that really easily.
So. Debate, yeah, exactly. So back to Rebel Women Lead support systems. Who has been instrumental in your career journey, and how have they helped you?
I'd probably name a few people if that's all right. I'll make it quick, so I'm conscious of time as well. So the first person.
That's okay. The Oscar speech, go for it.
I would like to thank. No, the first person is my mum. So I have to say, my dad comes into this as well. Both parents, fantastic. I was a miner's daughter from the northeast of England, and they're not traditionally all about women's rights, shall we say. Now, my mum and dad had 3 daughters, and neither one of them ever let us believe we were less than, which I think is a fantastic place to come from. But my mum is definitely this huge supporter, absolutely huge supporter. And every step that I've taken, it's like having somebody in the back with pom-poms going, yay! Which has always been absolutely fantastic. But she told me a story, and it was almost like she couldn't see the layers of the story that she told me at the time, but it's something that's really stuck with me. So when she was working, she worked in a firm that created electrical components in the northeast. And she was well known in the firm as, if you wanted to make it to MD of the company, you went to work for Margaret, because of her trainees, 4 of them went on to run the company. But she never advanced past that post because she was a married woman. And what about the poor men that needed the promotions to be able to feed their families? And she talked about this like it was a perfectly natural thing. And quite frankly, it frustrated the living bejesus out of me, because if she had the ability to train 4 people to take that MD role, then she obviously had the ability to do it herself. And I remember thinking really early on when she told me that story, that was never going to be me, and I wasn't going to accept to be the person that always pushed other people up, that I was going to climb the ladder myself. But it was, so that was kind of, from an early age, I was kind of conscious of that to think about as well. But having that kind of support and having that kind of constant resilience standing behind you. And I remember this one story, I remember I had a particularly frustrating day, really. You know, one of those days you're like, I've had enough, I'll go back to bed, I'm pulling the covers off my head, I'm not playing anymore.
That was kind of my Monday this week, to be honest.
Yes. My mum's story might help then. Yes. So I remember ringing on one of those days, and I rang mum, and I had a conversation. I started with, "Hi, mum," and then I just went on about a 20-minute rant of, you know, everything that was wrong with my life, the world, my day. It was like verbal diarrhea just spewing from me to clear it. And eventually I kind of paused and took a breath. It was like, and you know, you feel like a load's come off anyway from just ranting about it. And she came out with this immortal line of, "Caroline, I didn't understand anything past, 'Hi, mum.' But what it sounds like to me is you need to put your big girl knickers on and get out there and show them who you are." So a friend of mine recently bought me this lovely little card which just says, "Put your big girl knickers on." And I keep it on my wall. My mum, unfortunately, has passed now, so I still don't have the option to ring her. But she still hears rants from me, so that's okay.
I think mums can be such an amazing influence on our lives. And it's so amazing to hear there's such a positive influence on yours.
Incredible, absolutely incredible, positive. And the other person that probably would never really know how much of an influence they had on me was, can you remember a TV program called Tomorrow's World?
Yeah.
And it was like requisite viewing. And Maggie Philbin on Tomorrow's World.
Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing.
Exactly. Absolutely, exactly. So, you know, she was the only woman on TV when I was growing up that was like doing tech stuff and geeky stuff. And she was on national TV talking about it. And I remember, I think it was Thursday night it used to be on. I was like this. I wouldn't speak to anybody, wouldn't do anything. I was like sitting like this, staring at the TV for the entire time that program was on. And it was a real source of inspiration to know that women could be interested in the kind of stuff that I was interested in. And I was so lucky a few years ago to be at a dinner when she was there. And I'm sure she hears this all the time, but I had to go across and be a big fan girl.
I met quite a few people over the years where I just like loved them when I was younger. Mike Reed was one. Remember Mike Reed? And I just went up to him and just went, "I love you so much." So I'm all for being like just fangirling all over your role models and your heroes and your heroines. I'm a big fan of it.
Got to be done.
I love that. And for those of you who don't know Maggie Philbin, do have a look on YouTube for old episodes of Tomorrow's World, because she also always wore the most amazing jumpsuits as well. And
she did. I mean, she was rocking the 80s. She really was.
She was. And she was the first woman to kind of look at computers as they were back, rudimentary computers as they were back then.
I remember when they did mobile phones and all sorts. Oh my God, honestly, if you want, have a laugh, go back and look at some of the early episodes, because we were like blown away by some of this stuff, and now you would laugh.
The mobile phones were kind of like the size of that big and had a case with them as well.
Yes. Oh God, that's a blast from the past.
It is. Oh, Maggie Philbin. I'm going to have to look up some of her old YouTube stuff in a minute as well. Thank you for that. What do you think are some of the biggest kind of, we see it a lot on LinkedIn and we see it out in the world a lot in terms of like how to be a leader, and just lots of bullshit that absolutely does my nut in, frankly, which is part of why I started Rebel Women Lead as well. I was like, I can't be doing this nonsense anymore. What are some of the kind of leadership myths or traits that you kind of know are just complete BS that you've encountered, particularly as a woman in tech?
Oh, there is so many bullshit. Sorry, I'm going to say the word. There is so much bullshit out there about being a leader and what you have to be. If I'm honest, I like to focus on the positive, so I'm going to swerve the question a little bit, but answer it in my way.
Go for it.
And we've talked already about being yourself. And it's being your authentic self, but it's not just being yourself, because I've seen a lot of people go, yes, be your authentic self. You do, but the people that work with you deserve the best version of that. So I'm not saying don't be yourself, but, you know, leave the fact that you've had a bad journey, and leave the fact that, you know, yeah, washing machines just broke down and things aren't working, and, you know, the dog ate your homework and all that kind of stuff. You leave that at the door, because the people that work with you deserve the best version of you. Still you, but that's what you should be. So, and just remember that it's about them, not you. So if you can provide this clear vision, this articulation of where you want people to do, and trust them, not hang themselves, trust them, and give them support to head in the right direction, that to me is proper leadership, not about you know, that bully tactics. And we've all seen those kind of people at work.
But it's all ego.
It's all ego. Actually, I'm going to jump around a little bit. It's shocking her. Anybody who knows me knows I cannot stay on one topic. So sorry, Susan.
Go for it. I'm happy with that. Go for it.
There is this certain class of woman that frustrate the living bejesus out of me. You've just talked about the stats of how many senior technical women they are. And I have some amazing friends in this space who I think are incredibly supportive, wonderful, and I would lay down for them because they're just fantastic. There is this odd woman, and I've come across it, and I've got a friend who's come across this kind of woman very, very recently, and they climb through, they break the glass ceiling, and they do everything they can to pull the bloody ladder up after them and put the glass ceiling back in place. I want to take them out and smack them, if I'm quite frank. Because it's like, no, it's hard enough. There are not enough of us here in a leadership space. We should be doing what we can to help and support each other. And that frustrates me really badly. So that kind of bullshit, I would call out.
I completely agree with you. I thankfully haven't had to personally deal with those who pull the ladder up behind them for quite a long time. I talked to my Monday kind of little LinkedIn live I did about the worst woman boss I've ever had. And she was very much of that breed, and went from her to one of the best women bosses I've ever had. But I absolutely know that I have spoken to lots of people, even in the last couple of years, who are still dealing with this bullshit. And I kind of my brain sees the side of those. I might not see the side of Trump, but my brain certainly kind of sees the side of those women in terms of like, it must be exhausting to be like that, because it kind of feels like it's masking, but it also kind of feels like, how have you got anybody around you? How have you got any kind of support system if you're just being a cow to all the women around you? I feel sorry for them.
Heart. I would like to feel sorry for them after we take them out and shoot them.
Please note, Rebel Women Lead does not condone violence of any kind.
I'm from the northeast of England. We talk like this. We wouldn't actually kill people, just so
No. Let's go with a final bit of advice. What one piece of advice? I know this is kind of like, this is quite a hokey question. What one piece of advice would you give to women specifically who are aspiring to lead, particularly in the tech sector? Or could be more than one piece of advice, frankly.
Oh, good, because we can just run with that one. So I think one I would definitely give is, whatever you do, please, please, please do not limit yourself based on somebody else's preconceptions. So if you decide something, that's absolutely fine, but don't decide you can't do something because somebody else thinks you can't do it, because you never know till you try. And the other one, and I swear to God, this would probably be a Nike slogan that I heard years and years ago, but it's something that really resonates with me. Everybody laughs when I say it, but it's something that I'd live my life by. So everybody who lives dies. Everybody who dies hasn't lived. And that's the kind of slogany part of it. So I want to make sure that when I do decide the time is right, or it's my time to pass on, that I have absolutely wrung every bit of life out of this that I can. And I would love you to do the same.
I love that. Make sure you live the shit out of your life.
Have fun, enjoy the journey, have a blast, do the traveling, say the things you want to say. Get out there and have fun.
I love that. I'm just having a look at the comments from people. So thank you very much. I can't see, sadly, from StreamYard who is giving these comments. So we just get them up as generic LinkedIn user. Fellow person from the Northeast here, I'm a Geordie and I resonate with this point. I remember the difficulties of the late 80s just and early 90s. Yes. And somebody else has also just said, I love Tomorrow's World. I think maybe we just all need to be more Maggie Philbin.
Honestly, and she's still doing amazing things, absolutely incredibly amazing things. She's running some charitable foundations and stuff. So yeah, that's it. You know, I'm doing an advert for Maggie Philbin now. Completely, like, we are not worthy.
Both happily. A bit of an advert for you as well, because I think you're fantastic. And I'm sure the viewers are as well. Thank you so much, Caroline. We're literally like exactly quarter past.
Yes. Excellent. Woo,
we didn't even get to talk about Rate My Plate, which I'd never heard of, and sausage, egg and chips, sadly.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, I'm well up for that. Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us in the first episode of Rebel Women Lead. If anybody, people are just coming back with comments as well. Christina says, Caroline, you are amazing.
Thank you.
And Marion, we love you, Marion.
We do. We miss you.
We will see you soon, Marion, I promise. Awesome piece of advice. You need to have fun. And somebody else has just said as well, thank you, Caroline, as well. And that's from me as well. Thank you so much, Caroline. If anybody wants to be Rebel Women Lead, DM me on LinkedIn. If you can think you can match the brilliance of Caroline Carruthers, then try your luck, frankly.
Won't be hard. Don't be
Susan. Rubbish.
Good luck with it, Susan. I'm sure it'll be an awesome series. I can't wait to see the rest of them.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And it's just been a joy to speak to you. You have a fantastic rest of your day as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.